everyone, it's me. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. Basically, I think somebody on Twitch suggested that I do a reaction video to the subreddit British Problems. Now, a couple things here first. I don't really use Reddit and I don't fully understand it. I've never done a reaction video and I also don't really understand them. But I thought, why not? Now's the time to get with the times, you old lady you, aka me. So I thought, literally, I've got my laptop here. I don't have anything to put this on, which is so, I need like a little end table or something. And I'm literally just going to react to some of the things on Reddit about British problems. And I hope you enjoy. So without further ado, let's go. Okay. All right, here's another problem. I can either hold it like this and I can do it without my glasses, or I put my glasses on. Let's hold it like this. Get with the times, but also I can't see. All right, British problems, subreddit. I'm not gonna read out the users because they're hard to pronounce. We're just gonna do without. I'll put a link down below if you wanna check them out. It's not hard to find. Okay, here we go. Neighbor told me that my new fence was banging. I said, cheers mate, I'm really happy with it. Turns out he meant the wind was making the panels bang in the night, not that I'd done a banging job of putting it up. Okay, first off, hilarious. Second off, Canadians don't really use banging, I don't think. I don't think I would ever hear a Canadian say that. Sometimes we would use, of course Canada is a big country, I'm saying maybe Ontarionians. I always say Ontarians and I know that's not right either. Anyway, I would probably say like wicked job dude, or that even doesn't really work either. Anyway, the British slang never ceases to amaze me. You guys have so much more than Canada, although you've been around a lot longer, so you've had a long time to come up with your slang. Canadians are still trying to figure it out. BBC News didn't alert me when the Notre Dame burned down, but sent me a news alert for the cancellation of the Jeremy Kyle show. I guess, yeah, the question is who is deciding what is breaking news and what isn't? When I first came to the UK, I didn't have a job, so I spent a lot of time at home applying for jobs and watching daytime television. Terrible. But I did watch the Jeremy Kyle show a couple times, and for North Americans, it's kind of like Maury, and it's a little bit like Jerry Springer. It's kind of in the middle, I guess. So Jerry Springer is like wild, crazy news stories, really insane to the point that you don't really believe it. And Maury was very much like, who's the father of this child? And Jeremy Kyle's kind of like in the middle. It's outrageous and it's ridiculous and it's pretty harmful. And there is some like, who's the father kind of dramas. So it's kind of like the British in between. Do y'all hear that? Anytime I try to film, some big old truck decides it's gonna reverse up the road. So you just hear that beep, beep. I don't know if the mic's picking that up or not, but be on your way, pal. I got stuff to do. Now it's just reversing up another road. It's been about 3 weeks since I asked some teenagers on the bus to turn their phones down, and the adrenaline rush still hasn't subsided. There is something really sweet about the stereotypical, like, timid, quiet British person, the one that tuts at somebody but wouldn't confront them because that's too much. And the idea of telling teenagers to do anything, for me, is terrifying because I'm a baby and I don't like social confrontation. But it also kind of fits with that British stereotype of like, ooh, you can't say anything. Like, oh, just, it's not a bother, just let them be kind of thing. Here's another one that kind of fits with that stereotype. On an overnight flight to London with Wi-Fi on board, someone was using it to FaceTime and wake us all up. We all tutted and shook our heads at each other until a non-Brit told him to shut that up and we could all go back to sleep. Deciding between wanting Croatia to lose because they beat us or wanting France to lose because they're French. There is, of course, a really funny rivalry between England and France, or maybe the UK as a whole and France, but I think it's very much the English that are a bit weird about it. Canada doesn't really have that. I think Canadians, pretty chill, not a whole lot of drama happening over there. If anything, maybe there's a rivalry between Americans, but even then, I think typically, there are some Canadians who look down on Americans, like Canada is so much better, we're nicer, our country is better, everything's better than you, and so there's like a snobbish sort of mentality towards Americans. But then there's also other Canadians that are like, Americans are our buddies, we should protect them and love them and all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, Canada doesn't really have any sort of drama, grudge type stuff with another country the way England and France do. Y'all got some history. Heading out of the house, forgetting something, coming back in to grab it, greeting with, "That was quick," every time. That was quick. I've heard that all the time. I used to hear that a lot at work. Like if you're, oh, I'm just gonna go get lunch. You leave the office, you come back 30 seconds later because you forgot your wallet, and people are like, "Oh, that was quick." Don't ever say that ever again. No more. That phrase is banned. That sinking feeling when you have zero interest in football, but your child is developing a clear passion for it. Oh God, now I'll have to hang out with football dads. Now, football or soccer in Canada is fairly popular, but it's not one of the biggest sports. If anything, it would be more, your kid starts to like hockey, and then you have to deal with all that stuff, which sucks. At one point, I wanted to play hockey, and I told my parents, and I remember my dad saying, "No. We paid too much money for your teeth, you're not losing them." But honestly, I obviously don't have kids, but I can't imagine having to go watch your kid play football. It's one of the most boring sports. I'm sorry, people are gonna get mad in the comments. Don't at me. I think football sucks. Just play something else. Handing a 10-pound note to a bus driver and they look at you like you've just tried to pay with a Spanish doubloon. Okay, this was the bane of my existence when I first moved to England. I'd never used buses before. I didn't realize the etiquette that comes with using the bus. I just needed to get to work. And there is definitely a thing, at least in my area, the buses are cash only. You cannot pay with card. There's no tap in, tap out. That's really convenient. No, it is just cash. And preferably, it's perfect cash. Now my problem, as a foreigner, I don't really know what all the coins look like, which I know people say, "You're an idiot, how could you not?" They do that all the time in the comments. That's fine. But when you move to a foreign country and you look at just a handful of coins, you don't instinctively know which number is for which shape and size. That's something that you have to learn, okay? And so first off, the change kind of confused me. Second off, I never knew which stops would cost which amount or a return ticket because like the website was really terrible and it never told you specifically what amount. Because I have anxiety, I would check because I wanted to give them perfect change. So instead, you're forced to say what ticket you want, listen really carefully to see what they say because sometimes the accent throws you, and then try to fumble through my wallet to get the perfect amount of change. It was terrible. So sometimes because I was panicking and I was stressed out, I would just give them a note that I knew at least covered the fare, and they would look at me like I just killed their firstborn. I don't want to hate on bus drivers because I honestly cannot imagine a more stressful job, really. The fact that you gotta sit there all day and deal with the public, no thank you. To the one guy at King's Cross that pushed his way onto the train as people were getting off, we all saw you. we all despise you. And that goes again into the British stereotype of not wanting to say anything, not wanting to start any confrontation, but being very aware that an injustice happened and being upset at that person. Especially with etiquette around certain things, trains, buses, any sort of transportation. When the doors open, you always let the people on the thing get off first before you get on. It's just an unwritten law. It's polite. It is just common courtesy. If you break that common courtesy here in the UK, I mean, I warned you. I take my daughter to ballet lessons and read in the cafe area while she's being taught. Today, despite the empty tables and my hardback book, a stranger sat next to me and told me about their Christmas. How dare they? We talked about this a lot, and I'm just going to run through it real quickly. There is a divide between North and South. Northerners say they are way more polite and they will talk to strangers. Southerners probably won't, but they still say that they're polite and that Northerners are weird. Join the debate, I don't care. On average, from my experience living in England, you don't talk to strangers, and you certainly don't sit next to a stranger unless you absolutely have to. This is particularly true on trains. So I will take the train into London occasionally or wherever else, and you pick an empty seat, preferably with nobody beside you. And then as the train fills up, people might sit beside you. And sometimes they won't even sit beside you. They'd rather stand than intrude on other people's personal space. So I've just found that British people on the whole are very particular about personal space, about etiquette, about common courtesy, about things that they think are polite. And definitely if I was on a train and there's a bunch of empty seats and somebody specifically sat down next to me, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, if they started telling me about their Christmas or literally talking to me about anything else, who are you? I think I actually mentioned it in my visiting London video or something, where if you are using public transportation, do not sit beside someone unless you have no other option. Bus gave me an old £1 coin in my change. They won't accept the same £1 coin when I pay the next day because it's an old £1 coin. Honestly, the buses are a whole nother animal. If you come to the UK to live or to work or to travel, the buses are hilarious. If you live in an area that has better transportation, especially like London, where pretty much everything is cashless, you have to pay with like a tap card, like tap in and tap out, that's fantastic. But if you live in a village or a town like I do, where the buses are only cash, what? Today I heard someone say chips and fish. I am still recovering from the discomfort that this phrase inflicted. My train was delayed this morning due to the fact that it was late from the depot. Being late is not a valid excuse for being late. Again, the trains here are really funny. I know that there were trains recently that didn't run because there were leaves on the line. That meant there were too many leaves from the trees had fallen on the tracks and the trains couldn't run. I also have a friend who works in London, so she commutes every day, and a few weeks ago, maybe even last month, when we had that massive heat wave, it was so hot here in the UK, everybody was melting. There's not a lot of AC anywhere, so you just have to deal with it. Anyway, she has to take the train, and the train's actually canceled because it was too hot. So everybody was stranded and they had to find other ways home, like using buses and things, because the trains couldn't run because it was too hot. How about I leave you one last British problem? There's something about British humor that I really love. It is very similar to Canada. A lot of people say that I have now adopted a British humor. That's not true. I've always been this way. And Canadians do have that sort of dark, dry humor as well. Not everybody, because like the UK, not everybody here is funny. But I'll leave you with one last British thought. A little boy just screamed down the tube carriage, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands." And everyone remained silent. I love London. So those are some, I don't know, reactions to British problems. How do people do these videos? If you have something else you would like me to react to, let me know. I'll probably regret that later. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!